Sanjay, there are reports, as you know, that the co-pilot received these injections of antipsychotic drugs back in 2010. Antidepressants were reportedly found in his apartment in Dusseldorf. What does that tell you?
Well, I think in some ways it tells us what we've been thinking for some time now, that this was not depression alone. Depression alone is something that can be treated. A lot of people, as you know, Wolf, suffer from this. It can be treated. They can have very productive lives. When you start to have psychosis like this, it's a different mental illness. And I think when you look at these specific medications, olanzapine, for example, an injection of this medication, it speaks to the severity of the psychosis as well. It's typically a medication that's injected when someone is acutely agitated from psychosis. Now, these are not neat and tidy terms. You have depression here, you have psychosis here. Sometimes they can overlap. But he also received this medication, my understanding, 5 years ago. He was in his early 20s at that time. We know, Wolf, young men who are going to develop psychosis or schizophrenia in their lifetimes, that is a prime age at when that develops. So it sort of fits the psychosis, the severity of it, the need for these injections specifically, Wolf.
We don't know, Sanjay, the specific antidepressants he was currently prescribed, but even if he received these injections of this antipsychotic drug back in 2010, could that in fact point to what's described as a lifelong illness?
Very important question, Wolf. 5 years ago, he received a big gun, if you will, antipsychotic medication by injection. Usually that's given if someone, they have this diagnosis of psychosis, and it is typically a lifelong illness. So a big question mark still, Wolf. What happened over the last 5 years? We know he got that antipsychotic medication in 2010. Was he continuing to be treated? Not necessarily by injection, but even by oral medication, oral pills. Whatever it may be, did he get treated for a psychosis, or did he hide that, as some people often do, because he thought he would not be able to perform his duties or be unable to fly a plane?
Yeah, probably he thought what could have been a career ender. And as you know also, Sanjay, according to a European official familiar with the investigation, this co-pilot had visited an eye doctor complaining of vision problems, was told his issue was psychosomatic. Walk us through, how does that work?
Well, it's interesting. With psychosomatic, it basically means that, look, I went to the doctor for a very specific problem. The doctor performed all the tests and could not find anything wrong. You start to piece this together and say, if they couldn't find anything wrong and he had a psychosomatic illness, could that have sort of fit in with his overall diagnosis of psychosis? Was this part of his delusional state? Was he having hallucinations of some sort? Was he imagining things that were not there? That's sort of what that doctor, that medical report was sort of alluding to here. Again, we don't know for sure. We also know some of these medications that he was taking, some of the side effects, those medications can be blurred vision. So, there's a lot of moving pieces here, but when it comes to psychosomatic, it basically means the mind is making up an illness or imagining an illness that does not exist, Wolf.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, as usual, thanks very much.
You got it, Wolf. Thank you.